and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me just do a 1-minute introduction of mine. I will not take more than 1 minute. I was privileged to work with David Packard, Bill Hewlett, Michael Dell, Steve Jobs, and John Chambers.
You're still looking young, Vivek. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just a little bit younger than you, not much, but I work with these phenomenal people. I have done 6 US patents. I have contributed to 2 books and have had very successful career. I was head of Cisco and head of Dell in India before I retired. Now, when I look back, and I'm always inspired by people like you, and even if I have not met you, let me tell you, you were an inspiration. And actually, everyone I'm interviewing for the book is person I admire myself. And these are Mr. Narayan Murthy, Kiran Majumdar, John Chambers, Rahul Dravid, and so on. These are all the people I admire, including Ramesh and Swati Ramanathan, by the way. I know you know them. And yes. I'm on the board of Janagraha for last 10 odd years.
Okay.
So all of the people, including you, have inspired me. And that is why you are part of this book. Now, why the book? So when I look back at my legacy that I want to leave, and I have mentored thousands of people across the world during my career of 35 odd years, then I said, okay, the best gift I can give to the world is to mentor them. And in India, especially middle class or people in second tier cities where both you and I come from, second or third tier cities even, there is absolutely no guidance available for career of life, or there's not even term mentor known. So I said, okay, I want to mentor 1 million young people in India now. Now, how do you mentor 1 million young people? Obviously, one-to-one is not possible. So then the idea of the book evolved, that I'll write a book which will act like a mentor. And then along with the book, I'll have a website where people can ask questions, and me and a mentee pool of mine will answer these questions and help these people, all free of charge. There is no commercial benefit I'm deriving out of this. The book's profit are being all donated to Chitrakoot Eye Hospital. I do not know you are aware of it or not. It's a mind-boggling hospital in middle of nowhere in Madhya Pradesh in Chitrakoot. It is the largest eye hospital in the world. They do 1,000 surgeries, eye surgeries a day. I was blown over when I visited them, and I'm helping them. I'm part of them, and I'm working with them. So no commercial benefit I'm deriving out of this. And that is the goal, to mentor 1 million young people of India. Now, you will play a very major role in it, because one of the chapters of the book is the people who inspired me. And these are the people I talk to you about. So with that, that is why you are here. And I truly, once again, thank you for your time.
My privilege. My privilege.
Any question on the book or this Mentor 1 Million? Okay, perfect.
No, I'll leave it to you entirely, Vivek.
Perfect.
Whatever way you want it to be. Yeah.
So the purpose of you being here, or Mr. Narayan Murthy or Kiran Majumdar being here, is to inspire the young people. They may not consider me as successful as you or Kiran or Mr. Murthy are. So I want them to also add value, that, okay, this is helpful, guys, pay attention to this. And that is the idea. So first question, let me start with a very simple question. People who inspired you, who were your role model? You grew up in a small city also, not so small, but still small. So how did you get this inspiration?
You know, at every level of our life, you have different the heroes.
Beautifully said.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was greatly inspired by my dad. I still have very fond recollections of how he was managing, starting off as a worker in a hotel in Bombay, how he managed in those days before independence to have about 6, 7 hotels. He was managing single-handedly, and he wasn't a very educated person.
Okay.
Right? So that was a very great inspiration. But as I was growing up, there's a time when independence is still fresh in your mind.
Yes.
That we just come out of the bondage, and so Chandrasekhar Azad and Subhash Chandra Bose, and I had books of their photographs.
Wonderful.
Everywhere.
Okay. Okay.
then,
Okay.
then as I started studying, going to school, and learning, I think when I was in fifth standard, our teacher one day announced that today somebody did the heart transplant in South Africa, called Dr. Christian Bernard. Then the whole thing shifted from. I decided to become a heart surgeon because I want to do the heart transplant.
Wow.
Because
This
I
is
thought
in
it's very
fifth grade.
fascinating.
This is in
Yeah,
fifth
when I
grade,
was
right?
see, you have no idea what heart is.
No, but that is
The
amazing.
fact that you remove somebody's heart, and heart is something very precious.
Yes.
Remove it and put it somebody else's body, and that person walks out, right? Then I realized to become a heart surgeon, you need to become a doctor, right? So it's after I realized that after I wanted to become a heart surgeon, I realized I needed to become a doctor. Then as I was growing up, I'm the eighth of the 9 children. So, the bad thing about being the youngest in the family is that parents are old.
Yes.
The older siblings of mine had the privilege of young father, very energetic.
Yes.
He could play with them. He could do a lot of things, help them with their career. But when I was growing up, my father was old, mother was old. They were going in and out of the hospital. So my father was diabetic, and so then the doctors became heroes in our life.
I see.
Because they are the only people who get my parents out of the. So then my oldest brother became a doctor. Then he was an inspiration for me. The respect he drew and the stories he used to tell. So there are many, it's not like one person who inspires, but what these people showed is that it's not difficult. I mean, it's difficult. I'm not saying that it is possible.
But there is a way, yes.
There is a, you see, before Tenzing and Hillary climbed Mount Everest, thousands of people tried to climb, but they were not successful.
That's right.
But after he climbed, in a very short period of time, so many people climbed.
Many people, yes.
Mount Everest didn't change. Nothing changed.
Example.
People didn't become stronger than before. It is the thought that somebody else has done it. I too can do it. That's
Beautiful example. Beautiful example. Beautiful example. So along with that, this is the purpose of this question is obviously very clear that one of the chapter in the book is the 4 gods one needs in their life. And these 4 gods are people who inspire, people who mentor, people who are role model, and books. And so the example you gave is just phenomenal fit in that context. Thank you so much. Were you a goal-driven person? Did you make a goal at the 5th grade when you saw the heart transplant news, or when your brother became a doctor? Did you say, okay, I'm going to do that, and it became your life goal that inspired you in this journey? Anything like that happened?
It's a, when you really look at the life, we always like to think that we are in command of the situation. And, it's like, I can give an example. Like you're on the middle of a stormy sea, with a small boat, with that, thing to control the direction.
Yes.
And you, whole night, you're managing to steer the boat to the shore in a stormy sea. And when you reach the shore, you say, wow, I made it. Then you look down and you realize you only have the steering. There's nothing underneath. So our life is, you see, we, irrespective of how much we like to think we are in command, it is never, but I definitely always had a goal that I need to touch millions and millions of people.
Beautiful.
And every route I chose, how I wanted to do it, that didn't happen that way. It happened some other way. But the goal didn't change, but the path changed many, many, many times. Time frame also changed many, many, many times. Goalposts changed, but the goal didn't change. That's it. Yeah.
Beautiful example. I'm sure this will inspire a lot of people. Now, your journey, Dr. Shetty, is phenomenal. Coming from a small city and then achieving what you have achieved. Of course, God's will always is there. Blessings of elders are always there. But obviously, you can take a lot of credit for what you have been able to do. And your journey as a doctor and then your journey as an entrepreneur. What are the three critical success factors that made you into what you are today? With all God's blessings and elders' blessings,
Yeah.
I'm not undermining that.
The first and foremost is the compassion.
Compassion. Okay.
If you want to be a successful doctor, if you're not very compassionate, when somebody starts narrating the story, if you do not feel for themselves,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like I have no hesitation in touching anybody. The
Okay.
people, you see, as a doctor, we studied in medical schools where most of the in a government medical college, half the patients we treat wouldn't have had a bath for a few days.
Yeah.
And they wear clothes which were never washed, and there is a natural reluctance for a lot of people. There is nothing wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong.
Right.
But for me, I have absolutely no problem in touching,
compassion made
examining
that
them,
happen.
because you feel that that's your job. You have to do it. Someone has to do it.
Lovely.
Right? Yeah, because sometimes the wound is, you see, these days it's very uncommon. When I was a young medical student, large number of people used to come with ulcer in the stomach, ulcer in the tongue, or ulcer on the leg, not which is uncared for. There are maggots in it. And my job is to put those, we have a chemical solution, you put that, and all the maggots come out, then you clean it.
I see.
Right? And very few, even my classmates, very few of them wanted to do it. So for me, there is absolutely no problem. So compassion is the most important quality.
Yes.
And of course, the skill is very important. Some people I always like to, I'm one of those guys who's not very good in, like I wasn't one of the outstanding students in topping the college and, passing all the exams in the, I wasn't one of those, but I enjoyed doing things with my finger.
Beautiful.
That is something which is my strength.
Yes.
So as a kid, I used to dismantle every machine, whatever was available. And then when I became a surgeon, that's all we do. We are essentially engineers of the human body. So that really helped as a person who likes to do things with the finger.
Lovely.
Right? Then, of course, the most important thing, whatever little I have achieved, it's only because I have worked 1,000 times harder than most of my colleagues.
Beautiful.
It is nothing to do with the gift of God, or he was born with the skill. Okay, whatever you call it. But a surgeon who works for 16, 18 hours a day doing things with his fingers is definitely better trained than someone who works 3 days or 4 days a week. Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. When I asked this question to Rahul Dravid, he said, look, the credit goes to hard work. Not that I was a made person for cricket or anything. I just worked my
we like to
off.
think we are gifted and we are great, and but it is essentially the hard work which makes all the difference. Yeah.
Another thing that inspires me about your background, Dr. Shetty, is you have done innovation also, and you have built excellence also. These are two qualities that are generally hallmark of people who have achieved big things in life. What is the message for young people you would like to share? Why they should be thinking out of the box or innovation, and also going and trying to become the best version of themselves, or follow excellence?
You see, we always think that the world is like this and it's going to remain like that. And future is an extension of the past.
Yeah.
It is not, I want these kids to know, was there a bank before? Was there a credit card before? Was there a phone before? Or was there a government before?
Yeah.
Who created all this? It's a human beings like us.
That's right.
And what has been created is nothing compared to what we can create.
Yes.
There is nothing in this world you want to create which is going to make this world a better place to live.
Yes.
Nobody can come on the way and stop you. Of
Lovely.
course, there are a lot of deterrents, right? That is what you have to. So essentially, the beauty of the universe is everything what we need for the welfare of the human being is already created by the nature. We have to just keep on unpeeling it,
Beautiful.
just keep on peeling it off, and right? Then you find you don't need to really kind of a thing that I'm create something which nobody thought or nobody. It's all there. It's all in our own mind. It is just that we have to say it is there. I have to just find it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful definition of innovation. First time I heard that.
I'll give another interesting example.
Yes, please.
My daughter, when she was a very little girl, maybe she was 5 years or 6 years old. Girl, she was very good in jigsaw puzzles.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's maybe 5, 6, much around that age.
Okay.
And she used to have all these jigsaw puzzle pieces, and she used to keep on sorting it out. And one day when I entered the house, there are pieces all over the floor, and the little one is sitting and thinking, how to. When I looked at it, I said, "Honey, you can't do it." And she said, "I can't do it." I said, "It's difficult, honey." She said, "Dad, all the pieces are there." Yeah. This is what the mystery of innovation.
Yes.
Everything what you need to create something to change the world is already there.
Already there. Beautiful.
You have
example.
to just put it together.
Put it together. Yes,
all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are already there.
Beautifully explained, Dr. Shetty. Any thoughts on excellence? Because you have personally achieved it and you are a big proponent of it. And excellence is what makes human to certain extent superhuman. And any thoughts you want to share with our young people on excellence?
See, it's very interesting. When we do the operation and when we finish the operation on the heart,
yes,
I always tell my colleagues, if it looks beautiful, it works.
Okay.
If there is a symmetry, it works.
Okay.
Right? Now, it may, for a layperson to think, what is a beautiful operation? If all the sutures are in a uniform manner.
Correct.
Because, when some surgeons finish the operation, heart looks like dog's dinner. So, whereas some other surgeons, when we operate and look at the heart looks very happy. What we call as a happy heart. So, essentially, I feel very upset when I see a laptop, which is, very clunky and, and I am a great fan of Apple product.
Yes.
Because I feel that whatever product they make, they understand, they respect my feelings or my opinion or how things should be.
Yes.
Right? So I feel they value what I like. It is not about functionality, there are many things you can do.
Yes.
But whatever I should enjoy the process.
Yes.
of doing it. Like we create electronic medical records.
Yes.
All the EMRs are very good, no problem, they serve. But is the doctor happy entering the data in that EMR? Is he enjoying the process?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right? Or
Yes.
you make a product. Is the person, whatever product you make, is the person using it, is he happy?
Is he happy?
See, this
Right.
is something which we should be proud of what we have done.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
We should be proud and we should own that product that I have done it.
Beautiful.
When this is exactly, what I keep telling people, that when you have done the operation, the outcome of whatever you have created, it's what you have created, but you should be proud of what you have
Proud
done.
of that. Yeah. Beautifully said, sir. Aapne Apple ka, you gave example. Let me tell you, I worked with Steve Jobs, and actually I'm working right now at my home office, and right in front of me is a poster that has Apple product, iMac, if you remember.
Yes,
I
yes.
worked on it, and it has saying at the bottom that Vivek and team couldn't have done without you, signed Steve Jobs. It's just
Right.
in front
You
of
are a
me.
very
So
lucky man.
well, I got the privilege of working with him, and his feeling was exactly what you described. Inside or out, he said computer from inside should also look as beautiful as it is from outside. So like you are saying, heart will be closed, but I think the heart surgery should be done in such a way that you are proud of it and it's beautiful. So very good example and very good analogy there as well. Now, I have only 6 minutes left, but 2 questions left. One question I will ask is, medicine will change dramatically in next 20 years. I'm a technologist and I'm a big believer that the next wave of technology will take medicine to the bottom 5 billion people of the world who have been so far really not benefited from the technology. The top 2 or 3 billion have benefited. Now, so the dramatic change that is going to happen in medicine, what is your advice to the young professionals who are going to pursue medicine from now onwards?
I believe that the largest healthcare provider is going to be a software with few beds attached to it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the way it will be. And there will be essentially the decision on the patient care. The smart software will become smarter than doctors.
Humans, yeah.
And
Doctor.
within the next maybe 5 years, 7 years, we may not be able to legally take a decision on the patient care without the second opinion from the software.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
It will become legally mandatory for doctors to get the second opinion from the software before starting the. Doctors can override this one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but they have to get the second opinion from the software.
Okay.
And there will not be any paper and a pen. You see, if you look at the nurses in the ICU, half the time they are recording everything.
That's right.
All the machines will be synced with the electronic medical records, and today you see the ECG waveform.
Correct.
That's all. You have to interpret it. Now, in the future, the waveform is immaterial. You get what is going on with the heart. Because waveform is asking you to interpret. So the machines will be telling you what is going on. Okay. And human beings, you see, when a patient in the ICU, about 6 hours before they have a cardiac arrest, a lot of changes keep happening in the body.
Correct.
The blood gases will change, acidosis will happen, urine output will go down, filling pressure goes up. It is impossible for a doctor at 2 o'clock at night to put all the things together constantly. Human mind is, you see, if you have whole day, human mind can beat the software.
Yeah.
But if you have 5 minutes, the machines are definitely smarter. So all these machines getting the data from the patient, the blood test, constantly putting it together. The analytics will constantly tell you this is what is going on, this is what is going on. Is leading you in that direction, but we can always come say that no, that is not the way, this is the way. But that is again adding knowledge to the machine.
Yes.
So it
I
will
agree with
become
that.
infinitely better and better. So the future of healthcare is going to be nothing but interaction between the man, woman, and the machine.
Okay.
And a doctor who is able to manage, a diabetologist who's managing patients who could sit in front of him. In the near future, will be managing diabetes of not 5,000 people, 5 million people.
Wow.
Because it will be the person, the diabetologist will be assisted by large number of well-trained nurses and paramedics and everyone who will do the mundane work of monitoring everybody. The moment there is a problem, that is presented to the doctor.
Correct.
And he will be. So it will be a dramatically different world we will be facing. And I believe a lot of those things happen in India, will happen in India, because you see, it's very, it's an amazing country. We have gone from no radio to color TV with 300 channels in 20 years, no phone, to the most modern mobile phone. You know what I mean? We skip a lot of developmental phases what US and Europe has seen. They go in a gradual manner. We just skip from one to the other extreme.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So a lot of these rapid developments in medicine will come from India, you are saying. And
that technology will make healthcare safer for the patient.
Yes.
Technology will reduce the cost, and technology will democratize the healthcare.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is going to happen.
So the doctors of the future will not only need to know medicine, they also need to be friendly with technology.
Very, very tech savvy. Yes, they have to be very tech savvy. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. One last question, Dr. Shetty. You have managed your personal and professional life well. You have 3 children.
I have 4 children.
You have 4 children. Okay.
Yes.
So, sorry. So 4 children.
I have 3 sons. I have 3 sons and 1 princess.
1 princess. Okay. And with so much, hectic schedule, so much to achieve, such a sort of high journey, so to say, which requires time and mental time more than even physical time. Any thoughts you want to suggest to people who are in journey like you on how to manage both personal and professional life well?
You see, you need to enjoy everything what you do. That's the most important thing. I can work for 18 hours a day. I can still keep smiling. Sometimes the OPD will go on till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and patients are half asleep, and my secretaries are half asleep, and I can still keep smiling and talking to them as if he's the first patient I'm seeing. The reason is I enjoy the whole process. And when I go home, I play with my children, grandchildren, my family. I really enjoy that whole process. I think it is the best gift God has given. So essentially, I have the privilege of doing things what I enjoy. If I don't enjoy something, I don't need to do it. I'm lucky that way. So I chose to do things which made me happy. So, that's the whole philosophy of, how you can maintain a work-life balance. But one message I want to give to all the young people: if you want to become a doctor or any of those professions, really speaking, there is no work-life balance.
Yeah.
Somebody says, I want to become a doctor and I want a great work-life balance. I just want to ask them, what is the work-life balance of a soldier at Siachen Glacier at minus 20 or minus 30? Has he got a work-life balance, right? Yes. And here at least I know that for sure, or may not be for sure, that nobody is going to shoot me down. There, he's constantly, every step, he's worried that some bullet coming from somewhere may finish him off. There are certain professions in this world. We shouldn't really talk about work-life balance. It's not good for the profession. and it's not good for the young people who want to embrace it. There are many. I'm not saying that everyone should be like me, or like those crazy people who don't, because I lived when I started my career in England. My bosses, every time I introduced them to my wife, first thing they used to say that we are, it's a great pity, honey. We are so sorry for you, what you're going through, right? And I started my career in Calcutta, and I didn't go home in the first few months, and my house was on the third floor of the same building, right? So the essentially, unless I'm not saying the whole world should work like that. Few people who want to make a difference as doctors or whatever, they have to say that, okay, for us, there is no work-life balance, right? Yes.
They have to have a new. So I say exactly the same thing, sir. When I did my startup in US, I told my wife and children that for the next year or two, you are not going to see much of me, and that's life. I have to do so. So I say exactly what you are saying. We need a new definition of work-life balance, not the same definition of work-life balance. But whenever we are, like you said, whenever you are with family, you are enjoying that. And
yes, I really enjoy it. Yes.
And I tell the young people that going at 6 o'clock and watching 2 hours of useless television program is no work-life balance either. Yeah.
Yes,
So
I agree.
I think it's a lovely thought. I've enjoyed talking to you, Dr. Shetty, and my time is up. But with the last thought, I'll leave. I'm a hardcore technologist. Like I said, I was head of Dell, head of Cisco, and so on in US and India. If I can any time do anything for you, please count on me. You have done a big favor to me and my inspiration to really make an impact to 1 million young people. Your help is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Please stay in touch. Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
I loved it too. And, when the book comes, of course, I will, if the COVID nonsense is over by then, I'll come and give the book to you myself.
Thank you. Do you do podcasts?
I have done a lot of talks. Podcast I have not done. I have to start after I finish my book because now podcast is, of course, very common. But a lot of my talks on entrepreneurship, on success, on innovation, on excellence, they are all on YouTube. They are a little longer because most of the time I have spoken to students or large gatherings. So they are not 5-minute things. So when I create some of those now, I will definitely send it to you, sir. But I'm hardcore entrepreneur, and I'm now part of a venture capital fund where my goal is in the next 10 years to create 3 to 5 unicorns from India in product space, not from just from technology space like Flipkart and all, which are copies of Amazon or Naukri and so on. These will be product designed from India, which will go global and put India on the roadmap of product technology companies. That is my goal for the next 10 years. And I think I'm already on the way. I think I have 5 potential candidates from there. 3 should become unicorn. Unicorn is just a milestone. But if we can create those 3 to 5 companies from India in product space, which will become globally successful, I think we will change the definition of India from technology perspective.
Yeah, I have a request, Vivek, with your contacts and in the US technology space. If you can, interview all the people who are, who have done something in technology field, who are very active or who are retired for half an hour from the Indian perspective.
Okay.
And make it like a podcast. The reason why I say podcast is, you can always write a book. There's no problem. It can be a summary. Just an interview from what our Indians can learn from them.
Okay.
All the big names, they will obviously be happy to talk to you for half an hour. It could be a video as well in YouTube or whatever. But the podcast, you see, I'm very busy. I don't have much time to take a book and then. Whereas a podcast, even when I'm exercising, I can keep listening. So that way, access is much, much greater.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
also for the youngsters from the Indian point of view to know, how, all these big people who have done something big, what do they think about, how Indian entrepreneurs can do, right? In that kind of a context, it will be a great help. Yeah.
It's excellent idea, and I will do that, and I'll start putting that in my website after my book is a little bit in control. And I will definitely do that, sir. John Chambers, who is, I'll start with him. Already I interviewed him for the book, and he is a Padma Bhushan from India, because John is a big friend of India. And so I will take this idea, and trust me, I will work on it after I get the book thing in control and get my initiative off and running.
Thanks, Vivek. Thank you.
It has been absolute pleasure, Dr. Shetty, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.